What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassity. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. This is where you come for what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, don't forget to subscribe, share this thing out, like it up. It really helps the show. I just want to say I've got a guest here today. We're part of the white collar support group that Jeff Grant, who's both a friend of Tanya Pierce's and mine, and we do it every Monday night. And Tanya was on there the night, and I thought I need to ask her to be on. She'd be a great guest, and she agreed. She's got an incredible story. She spent 25 years in the real estate business, real estate world. She did 20 months in prison in the federal system, and then she got out and she found out it's real hard in reentry. It's a tough world. And instead of just letting that be, she became an advocate. She founded a nonprofit company called Unbolted that helps people, especially federal people returning home, through the things that they need and helps them walk through the things that they're looking for that'll help them. She's a big vocal voice for restitution. And it's one of the things I want to talk to her about because hardly anybody talks about it because they're scared to talk about it. But I can't wait to jump into all this with Tanya today. Before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots, looking for a car, and then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you, negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Tanya Pierce, welcome in. How are you?
Good, Brent. I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you to the listeners. Thank you, everyone.
I'm glad you're here. We're in Missouri. You're down in Arkansas, so we're not that far away from each other. So welcome to the Midwest. So Tanya, maybe the best thing is to kind of go back a little ways. To take the audience back of where you're from, mom and dad, siblings, what life was like for you growing up.
Well, I was raised in North Carolina. I came to New York at 16, and I went to John Jay College in New York. Started my life, went to college, normal life. Found out that there was something. I'm gonna share my age here without sharing my age. There was something called HIV and AIDS that I grew up in that era.
The 80s. Yeah.
Yes, and I saw people in my family and people that were close to me pass. And I noticed that they didn't have housing options. People strayed away from them. So when I got out of college, I decided that I wanted to help people living with AIDS have housing and permanent housing. So I decided with my godfather, who was a retired detective, we would buy properties in Brooklyn and fix them up and give them to people who were living with AIDS, and then also people who just couldn't afford to have their own housing without credit checks at that time. So that's how I got into real estate. My, grandmother owned buildings in Bed-Stuy as I was growing up. So I had knew about properties, but as far as my commitment to helping people, and that's where we will speed up my career. I worked for nonprofit organizations, and then I left to start this housing initiative with my godfather buying properties. Speed up a few years. I had an attorney who was my co-defendant. Um, I was always a buyer and fixing properties. I never did loans or knew anything. I contacted, but my attorney said, "Oh, Tanya, there's a property that would fit your family's portfolio. This is how much you need. This is the application. And, this is the process." I shouldn't say application. This is the process. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. Share my godfather. We buy the property. Speed up. Years later, my godfather dies of a heart attack in 2009. 2012, I get a knock at the door from the U.S. Attorney's Office of Manhattan. I've been indicted for conspiracy to commit bank fraud, wire fraud, you know,
Was this
uh,
like, Tanya, did this just come as a complete shock knock at
it
the
just
door?
came from a complete shock out of
Okay.
nowhere, um, to me, and I was like, "Well, okay." And like, really, really, what does that mean? Like, I didn't do loans. I didn't know about loans. I mean, my attorney, he's the co-defendant. I'm like, "Hey, did I sign something or do something that I wasn't supposed to, or fix it?" I mean,
Right. Fix this.
like, I don't know.
Here's the piece of paper. Fix it.
Yeah, like, I do properties. I help people have housing options that couldn't afford it. I don't do anything else. So lo and behold, down comes we had the first indictment that got dismissed. Then they came with a superseded indictment, and we went through 3 tiers of superseding indictments. So we got to the S3, and that May of the S3, the judge didn't allow us to defend it. The judge made us go to trial in July. So we had like 8 weeks. So I'm still like, okay. And and mind you, all of this for me is out of pocket with lawyers disappointing me, lawyers getting my retainer, cursing me out, lawyers calling me all sorts of liars. So I didn't need anything else from the Department of Justice. I was already called everything in with the people who were supposed to be
They're
protected.
representing you. I got to ask you though, Tanya, because it's in a federal case, it's always unusual because 97% of the people that get indicted, they end up plea bargaining out, and you didn't. Was that always your path forward, that you were going to trial?
Well, yes, because I had understood enough, because I did have a BA in criminal justice. I understood enough about white collar that your imprisonment had to do with the dollar amount that you stole,
Mm-hmm.
or that the government proved that you stole.
Right.
So when I'm going through my trial, and I'm looking at the indictment, I'm like, well, you saying that I ripped off a Fremont loan, you're saying I ripped off Long Beach, and you're saying that I robbed WAMU. Now, even though I didn't have anything to do with those loans, those losses was zero.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you convict me, the amount of loss is zero. So even if you convict me, I'm looking at 0 to 6 months. But I'm also thinking about, are they really going to take me to trial and waste the taxpayers' money taking me to trial for a case that is at most zero?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my logic. Um, I had understood, Anton Scalia said that the feds can indict a ham sandwich and
Right.
that they can do what they want, but that was never my thought. The only thing I wasn't
Well,
offered.
I don't want to just gloss over that, what you just said, Tanya, because in the federal system, when they do an indictment and they take it to a grand jury, a lot of people assume that in a grand jury that the prosecutor presents his charges and then the defense defends those charges. That's not what happens in a grand jury. It's only the prosecutor that presents their charges and they decide if that can be done or not. That's why they say you can indict a ham sandwich, because the other side is not presented at all.
Correct. So I just went with the lost amount, and I said, um, evidently I was already traumatized from attorneys, and really treated harshly, by my legal staff. I have 4 sets of different attorneys. And then to cap it, when I got to trial, my attorney did not do anything that he said he would do. He would call witnesses, he would find bank experts, he would do this, he would do this. And he told me that every day that we leave this trial, for this $150,000 trial fee, which lasted 3 weeks, every day we leave, we're going to have a strategy and come back tomorrow and hit them hard. Well, I learned every day at 5 o'clock when we left 500 Pearl Street, he went home and I went home. And the only thing I could do was brace for what was going to happen to me. Now, I went to trial without letting a family member in my family know that I was in trial for 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh, Tanya, how did you do that? How did you accomplish that feat?
Through stress. And I had a son that was 1 year old.
Okay.
And I was lying like I was going to work, but I was going to trial. And even at the last second, my attorney looks at me and says, I need you to testify today. You didn't prep me. We didn't do anything. And then he gets into a verbal altercation with me in the courtroom. And then the judge says that if I was her, I wouldn't testify. So this was really a kangaroo courtroom that I was faced and troubled with.
Wow. So this is a 3-week trial. Everything that you thought was going to happen, all the strategies, everything that you hoped for didn't happen. You get into an argument with your attorney in front of everyone. And the judge says, I wouldn't do it if I was you. When it all is said and done, Tanya, what did you think there was any hope of that jury going back into the room and saying, I think everything's okay, it's not guilty?
No.
Yeah.
Because for the simple fact of the 3 questions that I had going into this case that I told my attorney to have answers for was the 3 questions that the jury asked. I'm a layperson from the community. These are the questions. And he did not prepare an answer for those questions. The only thing I could do is what a semi-normal person would do is when it all came, you just throw up and almost fall out because there's nothing else left. Completely deflated, completely. And
So
yet.
So what happens? I mean, a lot of people don't go to trial. You're sitting there. I mean, people see it on TV and the movies. The jury walks back in. Could you tell by the looks on their faces that it wasn't going your way?
Oh, I knew it wasn't going my way while it was going because I didn't have a defense. My co-defendant, he was the attorney, his lawyers didn't have a defense for him. It surely wasn't going to be a defense for me when I'm a collateral to him. This was his case, and I'm his co-defendant.
Wow.
If the lead attorney in the lead didn't have anything, surely this person here didn't have anything. I didn't have an answer to the U.S. attorney's questions for anything.
So they come in, they say guilty.
Yes.
What goes in your world, in your mind with all that surrounding you?
Well, he had at least said to me that, if when they find you guilty, you're not going to go to prison today. You're going to be sentenced and you're going to be remained on bond. So the only thing I did was just brace for that. The U.S. Marshals did come and take my co-defendant, and I just braced myself for today. And then I started to prepare myself for, probation, because this is a white collar. There's no money loss. I can't go to jail if I'm convicted of robbing 3 people or 3 entities that already submitted documents that they had no loss.
Right.
So
what happened? What happens, Tanya?
So about maybe 6-7 months later,
okay,
the U.S. attorney now turns and comes up with something called relevant conduct.
Okay.
And then, of course, that team of lawyers that I had for my trial conveniently gets off the case. Now I'm penniless and have to go to CJA. They pick up the case to do nothing. And now I'm saddled with a restitution and this relevant conduct. And I'm like, how is this possible? Where is the documentation to support that this money was actually taken, whether it be by the co-defendant or myself? Where is real documentation that shows that dollar A went to dollar B?
Mm-hmm.
None of it. Absolutely none of it.
Is this
And
also when you got sentenced for the time?
I had,
6 months later.
I had already yes, because now the sentence comes because of this money amount, these ghost numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm a level 27 and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be like a level 7. And I look, and that's when it hit me. A level 27, you're facing 78 to 84 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I said, my life is over. My life is over.
So what happens when that happens?
I'd be honest. A few times I stopped in the middle of the George Washington Bridge, to just jump.
Mm.
But I had the 1-year-old son.
Yeah. Now, I
And
mean,
then
there's
it
all
dawned
kinds
on
of
me,
things that go
oh
through your
boy,
mind when you think everything's out of control.
what's
So Tanya, you get this, they lay it down. You're given the bad news, and you tell me that you're thinking about going and jumping off the George Washington Bridge. How did you step forward?
I thought about my small son. I thought about I had just lost everything and I couldn't be another burden on my family. Because now, even if I fly off the bridge, that's a cost to my family, not only, emotionally, but financially. And we're completely wiped out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're completely wiped out. Um,
So when you end up getting your place, the federal prison you're supposed to go to, was it in close proximity to you or was it a long ways away?
it was as close as a woman's facility gets to New York, Danbury. I self
Okay.
surrendered on August 17th of 2015. I had to go to the camp. I actually thought the camp, they process you the most degrading thing in the entire world. And that's why I freely speak today, because I say, listen, there's nothing more degrading than coughing and squatting for a complete stranger. There's nothing more degrading than that process of being stripped really to nothing.
Oh, I would agree. It's, and I almost feel like, and I've said this a lot, you can feel the freedom like shedding off your skin when you're being processed. Like
Yes.
it's like it's coming off of you, your freedom.
So if you have survived that and made it through the walls, the food, you can survive anything. And that's what, once I made it up the hill, I actually thought that, because when in Danbury, they give you your blanket and the whatever, that care package that they call, and they tell you to walk up the hill on your own to the camp. So I'm like, okay, this is it now, because a firing squad must going to come and get me, because how do I check myself into prison? You give me this pillowcase full of things and tell me to walk out and walk up the hill. I'm like,
Yeah.
this, I'm like, I'm dead for sure now. I'm like, God, forgive me for all my sins, any transgressions I have.
Tanya, okay.
Yeah, so I said, forgive me for my transgressions, and then I go up the hill, and then I, meet the women in Danbury and
Well,
begin
let's take a
that
break
journey.
right there because I want to talk about how you walked into that world that unfamiliar world that you know that you're not just going to be there for a week or a month, you're going to be there for a while, and how you adapted to it. Before we do, a lot of people don't like how they show up online. Many individuals think there's no way or no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google or in the internet world. There is hope. It's called Discoverability Company, and they can help you. Whether you're rebuilding your reputation from scratch or you're repairing from search results after a negative news story, Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. They're even launching a do-it-yourself SEO option, a course for individuals who want to take on their search results on their own budget and speed. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off the DIY SEO course with coupon code Nightmare Success. And I just want to say that Nightmare Success is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group. It's the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is a great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org. It's prisonist.org. Start here. So, Tanya, you walk in to the world of Danbury, and you tell us what it was like walking into prison of someplace you never thought you'd be.
I was afraid. I was humiliated, but at the same time, I was already beaten down. At this particular junction, like I had told my family when they dropped me off at Danbury, I says, "Listen, don't drive in front of me. Just back up and back out of here, because I don't even think I have the breath in my body to take two more steps."
Mm.
And so going into the prison, um, people will come up to you. I mean, let's face it, once you're there, you're no longer, black, white, rich, poor, any religion. You are a person that's stepping into a place that's familiar to the people that are there, and they know pretty much that you have broken down. So you walk in there and you hand your piece of paper and they assign you the bed. And at that point, I was just afraid of everything. Afraid of living, afraid of breathing, afraid of speaking, afraid to not speak. Because you don't know this environment. If someone say hello to you, you don't say hello back, well, they attack you. So every fear from my pinky toe to the top of my head, every vertebrae, every vessel, everything in me was completely mush. But I just held myself.
So, how did you start stepping through it? How did you adapt? How did you do your time while you were in?
Well, the way that I did my time that I was there, which is something that I shared with the warden a few, months into my sentence, where I told the warden, the judge sent me here on a staycation, not a vacation, and I'm here to stay until the judge or whoever says I'm time for me to go. And I just went there with that mentality. I just listened a lot. I didn't engage at first. And some of the people that I'm friends with today, will say that not one day for the 20 months that I was there did I ever watch TV with general population. After the last meal at 4 or 5 o'clock, you never saw me. I went back to the room and read. The morning time, I got up at the 6 o'clock count. I did my little workout and I read. I didn't interact with much people, but what I did learn was to knit and to crochet,
Okay.
because there wasn't much programs. So let me tell you something. My son and my family had the best knitted outfits Okay, I still have a blanket. I matter of fact, I wore a poncho that I made me the other day and shocked some people. Okay.
I like that. I
You
like
know,
that.
so I really took the time to think about myself, what I was going through. But then at a point, I did wake up and say, and then I started to challenge the administration around legal. They had switched to the LexisNexis program, the law library inside the computer. They didn't teach anyone, they didn't have classes for it. It was just there. If you go on it and blow your 13 cent a copy, printing out something that you didn't know, people were burning through copy cards not knowing how to access it. So I kept on the administration till one day the education director just slammed me with the LexisNexis manual that they received and said, if you want to take this on, take it on and leave me the hell alone. And that's what I did. I read the manual. I learned how to use the system. I trained other people how to use the system. I opened up the legal secretary apprenticeship at the Danbury camp, and I believe that it's still going on today. And after that, other women started receiving the 2,000 hours that are transferable with the Department of Labor to be legal secretary apprentice. And that's what I did with the time. Um, I was angry, majority of it, but then at a point, I had to start looking at no longer being angry and start looking at the next chapter.
Mm, that's and doing something like that. I think, whenever you make that effort, when you're trying to figure out how to get into adapting, and then you start helping people like you did, Tanya, it feels good. It almost feels like they haven't taken your brain. They've taken all these other things, but you're still able to be yourself. And that, I think that's such a big deal when you're in prison is not to lose yourself in there, not to become, you know, prison Tanya or prison Brent. You still are yourself doing things that you would do on the outside, even if you're in prison. And those are things that you would do on the outside, Tanya, because you are doing those things, helping people
Mhm.
as you were before you were going in. So you start getting close to your out date. What are you thinking?
Okay, there's a good side and there's a good side to, and I'm a proponent of both sides, but I think for me, having video calls was a good thing, but
Mhm.
also it motivated me to want to get myself together and be all that I can be, because inside it was killing me that I was watching my home situation change without me.
Mhm. Yeah.
For me, going and missing two Christmas when I left, I'm a girl from the South. I'm used to the big Christmas trees and all of that, live trees. Year 2015, my family had the big Christmas tree the same way I left things. 2016, because remember, we are on video,
Mhm.
seeing that they had a Charlie Brown tree there literally almost killed me, because in a way I'm watching life go on at home without me, but yet I'm having family visits. I'm on these videos and I'm living in almost like a dual world.
Mhm.
I'm one way when my family visits, but it's killing me that I'm here because life is changing without me. And I says, Tanya, when the time you're going to get out of here, you have to bring those things back together, because this trauma is overtaking you. And I was keeping like a journal that I end up trashing because it was filled with so much bitter and anger as I watched the wall, my house, my family change without me, that it scared me. And I says, no, I can't go down that pipe. I have to change. So as I now get the date, that's what you're talking about, the date
Mhm.
that you're
The
going
date.
home. You find out, oh, in the abyss, because probation have come to your house, people have started talking, but the BOP doesn't give it. But you know that you're on that line. Like,
Right.
when they gonna give me halfway house? This one got 9 months. I'm 7.5 months. I could be called next month. Well, I ended up getting 6 months halfway house. So I left out in April. And as I got my date, which is always, things happen to me and in a very astute way. I'm on a visit. Remember, I'm always in jail 7 days a week, 24/7. They wait until a Sunday that my family is visiting to come out and give me my date, which is a month and a half away. So as embarrassing as that is also joy filled. But it's like you could have told me not on my visit with my family. Like, damn it, I'm finishing 30 minutes. Like, come on, have some respect on a Sunday, my God. But the
Yeah.
BOP doesn't care. So as I'm looking at the date and I'm saying, I'm gonna leave the people here, go into a new transition. I didn't know exactly enough about the halfway house to have a concern, which I should have had a concern. Now that I know what I know, they need to train us about that halfway house. Um, and I spoke, and I'm speaking at the halfway house this week. But that transition,
Don't you think? Don't you think, Tanya, that might be one of the biggest surprises? Because I mean, you think about like a lot of people think the worst thing is stepping into prison. It is bad. I mean, there's nothing more degrading, dehumanizing, all those things like you talked about. I think the biggest surprise though is reentry. I think we're so geared up to hopefully get back into society, and that reentry process is so much more difficult than we know.
yes, and that's where I had my biggest defeat. Every door, every no was just horrible. I lived at the halfway house for 5 months. It was shameful. I wanted to probably not even go back to prison, but just not even exist, because I assume that the reentry world, if nobody else would let me in, I had a safe space there. But then I came back to New York, and all the programs you go, they say, "Oh, if you're from Rikers, Taconic, Sing Sing, all of these places, we don't know about, you know, returning from federal prison." And that hurt me so much. Not knowing, not being able to find employment, and then all of the hurdles. And I spent most of my time trying to get a pass, and when I'm out on my pass, trying to get back in time for my pass. Um, and then the home confinement with the ankle monitor and adjusting there was very difficult. Just having people here white collar and close the door on you was so hurtful.
Well, when you went through all that, you just didn't let it sit. I mean, you actually took finding out that there's not a whole lot out there in the federal world of being a an ex felon as a federal ex felon. You actually took it upon yourself to create a nonprofit and do something that a lot of people don't do. I mean, you created Unbolted, which started helping people in that arena. How did you even know how to do that?
Well, I use my own experience, and then I use the experience of the people that I knew that were federally impacted, that were going to groups, that were going to community organizations and being turned away. And that's why I named it Life Unbolted, because we have a life that have to be unbolted on the restitution side and even on the reentry side. We deserve the same equity and inclusion as anyone else returning to whatever jurisdiction you belong to. The 94 districts, we are in every community. We are people that are federally impacted, are millions of people, 60,000 people a year across the country. But yet there's no, or we're unhoused.
Right.
We're unhoused as a collective. You can't say right now, anyone that's listening that's federally impacted, where would I call right now if I have a question? luckily in New York, and now that I started this organization like 2 years into this now, people are now calling me and say, I heard about your organization. My son, like, yesterday I got a call. A woman said my son is on pretrial in North Carolina. I need support. So now I'm starting to generate calls like that, and that's what I would love to do with Life Unbolted, is to be a community hub for everyone across the country. Because I can tell you one thing, if you're in prison right now and you know that your community doesn't have anything, you may tell those people to make your designation somewhere else because you don't want to go back.
Well, I'll tell you this: there was a gentleman I'm going to be speaking to Thursday that he created it was called 70 Million Jobs. It was Richard Bronson, and they did this gigantic survey. And the top three things that came back were obviously somebody wanted to get a job, somebody needed housing. The third thing is something you're talking about, Tanya. They were looking for community, where could they find community of like people? And what you're talking about is the top three things that makes it so hard to get back in, because people don't want to go back to where they came from in prison. They want to make it work on the outside. They also found out that the people that you hire that are justice impacted people in this survey make fantastic employees, because they're just looking for a real opportunity, a real wage to get back in so that they can be a part of the society through the reentry. And I think it's fascinating that you've done these things, you've stepped back in, but I'm now speaking to somebody who's in law school. So, I mean, you've taken these steps and you've done these things that a lot of people would say, I'm just going to curl up and give up. And every time that you've been presented with a barrier, you've actually put your shoulder to it and pushed it through, even though it's hard. Talk to me about the law school thing. Was it hard to get into law school? How did people perceive you in your law school? How did it come about?
Well, my law school journey came for, two reasons. One is the unjust with people that are federally impacted, and second is policies around restitution. Most people that I've met have enormous restitutions. They never receive the money. And also the public perception of people on restitution is that everyone is thieves that are trying to get over and finally got caught, goody goody gun drop. I'm glad this has happened to them. And it's farthest from the truth.
So how did you walk into the restitution thing? Because you and I talked, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this, because a lot of people are afraid to talk about restitution because there's so much around it. There's this big dark cloud that follows you. I think it has a tail on it for 20 years. But talk to me a little bit about how you became this reform-minded person in the restitution world, because there's not a lot of people that even have the courage to speak out about it.
Correct. It became because of my restitution. I went to trial and I was convicted. When I got to Danbury, I had went to trial. I was convicted of defrauding 3 lenders. We won't even go to the conviction part, but the amount of loss on my conviction was $36,000. I got, based on the lenders on my trial, on my judgment, on my conviction. My girlfriend, who I met in Danbury, she had the same attorneys that I had. Her trial was 3 months after my trial. Her case, same strategy, she was convicted. But her co-defendant, who had taken a plea, had asked for an MVRA hearing, Mandatory Victims Restitution Act hearing. And even though he had taken a plea, the Court of Appeals granted his motion.
And nobody knows about this, by the way.
No one knows about this. I didn't know about it, okay?
Me neither.
And their restitution was reduced to $200,000 from in the millions. Now, if you take someone who went to trial and someone who had a plea, so now we need to move away from that terminology. Who takes a plea? Who went to trial? We're looking at the raw figures of restitution and the unjust and those ghost numbers. And that's where we come together and we say that if every person doesn't have a MVRA, Mandatory Victims Restitution Act hearing, where the alleged victim produces proof that they gave you or your co-defendant this money, you shouldn't be paying restitution for it. And that's where I started to do my research as soon as I came home, because I believe that I have restitution for money I didn't receive and so many others. And then fast forward it to 2019, where the Congressional Research Service does a report and says that the restitution is in these billions of dollars, and they know that they are only going to collect $1 off of every 100. So, what are we doing here? Policies are wrong for people to be given a life sentence for restitution, especially for monies they didn't receive. Don't try and make me a poster child for your resume.
So what happens when you go and talk to people about this?
Well, most times at first, uh, people didn't really want to believe that this could happen to you, because the federal conviction rates are so high, the plea rates are so high that it's just believed that if you had a Fed case, you were guilty just by association. And anyway, you got a slap on your wrist, and you went to some plush place anyway that had pool tables, golf carts, and you also had a pool and a maid, and it's not true. And so when I started going around sharing my story in the real deal about the federally impacted community, and now so happened that, life would have it that all of these things would take place where you would start seeing the dilapidation of federal prisons, and now it becomes in the news. So it's people are starting to say, well, yeah, this is something a little different. I want to hear more. Wow, but didn't you take that money from, didn't you do that SBA or that mortgage loan or now the PPP? So now I ask each person, and I go to law schools as well, and I tell the students, if you're going to be the next judge or prosecutor, I could be your mother, I could be your neighbor. Make sure the numbers are actual.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have some students from Colombia who have made a commitment to me that in 10 years.
The other thing that I was wanting
Mhm.
to get to is when you are a student, as a law school student, is it like you're just like every other law school student, or do they know your story? Like, how are you accepted into that world?
Well, in the law school on my application, they do know my story. Very upfront, they do know my
Mhm.
story. The law students do not know my story. I'm a 1L, struggling just like everyone else. I am here. I mean, my professors, some of them know, and they also
Mhm.
know that my purpose, like, I'm from New York. I'm not taking it, and the school is based in Minnesota. I'm not I'm not taking the extra classes for the New York bar. I'm going to take the Minnesota bar because my goal is to get to federal court. And as long as I'm licensed in any jurisdiction, I can get to federal court. And that's where my practice will be, only around habeas petitions and finding a way to help people impacted by this horrible restitution and other things of compassionate releases.
Yeah. Well, and and I know people who have gone through, gosh, I've had some people on, Casey early and some other people that have gone and have had, their past experience being prison experience and being incredible attorneys. Um, and like KC, she's an incredible defense attorney down in Florida because she's walked through it, so she knows. I would love to have a criminal defense attorney that had gone through the whole process and knows everything on the other side, because they become that much more of an advocate for you. How do you see your world stepping forward?
Well, I see my world as stepping forward with building a coalition of people who,
Mhm.
even if they cannot give their face, but give me their network to work to meet legislators and senators that will help us with. We have a bill that I'm trying to get sponsored called the Fairness and Restitution Act that I've worked on with the NACDL. And mind you, that was a tough cookie right there, getting the NACDL to understand restitution. And they went and hired their experts to write a bill for us. We just haven't
For
had
those that don't know the acronym, can you tell them what that is?
the National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys.
Which is
Um,
huge. I wanted you to say that because
yes,
that's a big deal. That's a huge organization.
yes, and so we're looking for a sponsor to sponsor our bill, and I'm looking really at, it's called Fairness and Restitution. It's around settling restitutions, having it end in 10 years, not attacking people's Social Security, about accountability, about settlement, and really having that tough discussion around money, which we have to be able. People want you to have literacy classes and all of these other classes, but no one is talking about ghost numbers and where is the money and restitution going, since most cases there are no victims.
I mean, it's quite a thing, Tony, and I am so happy that you are doing this, and being the voice, and putting these organizations together that are not easy to put together. You know, and I think it's inspiring for people, especially who listen to this, who have been through what we've gone through, our nightmare, and in the reentry world, that things are still possible. What you've done is, you're not just a hopeful person. You're putting action to it. You're taking steps. You're advocating. You know it, and when you are able to sit down with somebody, whether it's criminal defense attorneys or whatever the organizations are, they know that you know what you're talking about. It's just getting in front of them to be able to advocate. And I love that you're doing it. I was going to ask you, you know, of all the things that you've gone through and where you are today, what do you think's your biggest takeaway through all of it?
My biggest takeaway is the family and the network that I've made that are not blood related. Being able to talk to you in Missouri, that in my old world could have never happened. And just having, this horrible experience to just be able to share with the public and say, even if you don't have a voice, reach out with an email and let people like me and others that work with me, let us be your legs. Let us be your mouthpiece, because each and every one of our stories, it may not happen today, but if we stick together, we are going to crack this case. And it always takes a village. And we are the village for restitution reform. It cannot continue to have ghost numbers. Look at these people. They fought drugs all of these years. People fought
Right.
marijuana all of
Right.
these years. Let's take the other M, money, and say you cannot impoverish, make a debtor's prison here on our watch.
Tanya, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can get a hold of me at, you can email me at my last name Pierce at lifeunbolted.org,
Okay.
or you can call us at, and you're gonna have to know this number is gonna be pretty, it's gonna be pretty easy. It's 929 Fed, which was 333 3494. And we are everything about the feds.
I love it. I
Yes.
love it. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes.
Yes.
And for those who, I want to give a shout out to Homestead Financial Home Mortgage. I use this fancy studio here and I appreciate it. For those who have home mortgage needs, get a hold of Greg Afdiev. He knows everything about it. He'll walk you through the process. If anybody's looking for a book out there, I've got one, Nightmare Success. It's on, you can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And if you got time, leave a review on Spotify or Apple reviews. If you want to know anything about me, go to brentcassity.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. And as I used to say when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Tanya Pierce, stay going. I just hope you have enough gas in the fuel tank to make it all happen, because I'm with you. I'm 100% for you.
Well, as long as restitution is in front of me, I will be here. Now, once we fix restitution, then the gas will be on E. And you will find me in Maldives somewhere. But until then, you will find me all over really fighting for any person that's impacted by the 94 districts with restitution and federally in federal criminal situations.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Nightmare Success, in and out. Thank you, Tanya Pierce.
Thank you.